course, we are here many.
Okay.
We have many time zones here, and welcome Brian joining us and encouraging the young students who are participating in this webinar. Today's webinar is very unique and different. We have a young student from India who has been to the expedition to the Leh Ladakh, and we want to have learn from his experience that how his experiences can help us and then promote younger generation to take more expedition to Himalayas. Usually every year we have this Lake Pokhara expedition, which is very popular, and we can start another expedition, hopefully to Leh or Bhutan. Hopefully, I don't know how it happens, depending on the consideration and recommendations of the country coordinators from the region, and we can start some more activities to the Himalayan region. Okay, now we have 47 participants. That is good. And I just want to see if our official photograph, Nishi, you are around here? Nishi?
Yes, yes. Good
Okay, great.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Okay. May I request our speaker, Yashraj, you are here?
Yes, Dr. Desh, I'm here.
Okay, let me give just 1 minute introduction to him. Already has his introduction in one of his slides. He's a young scientist, engineer, working in Chennai, south of India, from Pune. He had been to expedition to Leh Ladakh, and he took some good pictures. And he's going to show us some of his work which he's doing. He's associated with GLOBE, GISM, and also very active. He is going to show us some of his work which he has done. And I'm sure that will inspire the young students and the teachers who are joining us today. That is why I was particular that we should have some students to join so that it can be inspiration to them. And I can see a number of students have already joined from India, from Philippines, from Thailand, from Nepal, and which other countries. And I request to all the participants in the bracket, please put the name of your country so that it helps us to make a brief report to Globe Office that how many countries we are here. Please do that. And when she take the picture, then keep your cameras open so that she can take the pictures. And I hand over to the speaker. And after his speech, we would like to have some discussion on some of the activities which we can plan in the region. So those who want to stay after the webinar, please do that. And please, Yashas, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Desh, for providing this wonderful opportunity to represent my Himalayan expedition over here. So, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm Yashraj Patil from Maharashtra, India. So, I'm very excited to share with you all about my personal experience of my first ever expedition that I went to the Himalayas for the first time. Yeah, and also I stepped into the Himalayan foothills and the region for the first time in the high altitude region. So till now I never visited the Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, neither Jammu and Kashmir. I directly stepped into the high altitude region at Ladakh. So I'll be sharing my screen for my presentation. Let me know if the screen is visible. Is it visible now?
It's okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So basically, the Earth and Space Exploration Program was organized by the Amit University Mumbai, and along with the partnership with different organizations from Australia, also from Europe, and even some of the NASA's department were involved in this exploration program. But unfortunately, those international scientists and the trainers couldn't attend this program in person, so they guided us through the online platforms. So moving towards the next slide. Uh, as already Desh has introduced me about my profession and what I'm doing currently. So skipping this about me, I'm very excited to be part of the GLOBE program because I'm a kind of environmental conscious along with a science addict and the techie. So all mixing all those things, I can actually contribute myself towards the betterment of the society. So today's agenda will be of, one second, let me, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So today's agenda will be some introduction to the Himalayas, my personal experience about the Himalayas, what I have seen and what I've experienced for the first time, and also the formation history that I was actually unknown about till now. Like even in the geography, we are having some limited exposure to those things, but in the school levels, although if you choose the masters in geology or geography, you would be getting to know about the formation history. So this will be the first part of this agenda. Then kind of introduction to the Himalayan expedition sites. So the organizing team had chose the 4 different sites which are actually very fragile in the environmental perspective and are literally prone to the climate change. So that I will be introducing. Then the most exciting thing is my Himalayan expedition story map. So I've designed this story map thanks to Dorian and Brian, who helped me to build this story map. And I will be totally introducing you about the whole aspect of the Himalayan expedition using my story map. Then I will be guiding you like how to select a special GLOBE protocol suit. So this is a kind of interesting thing what I actually prepared before going to the Himalaya, and afterwards going towards Himalaya, what I saw in person. So I need to skip some protocols and which were not actually not able to implement over there. So how can you manage those things? So I will be guiding you through this, and there is some surprise about the twilight magic and the troposphere. So stay tuned. So first of all, I would like to scan this QR code, or just you may visit this slido.com and enter this code, and let me know about what do you love about the Himalayas. So that I can get about those things. So you may type over there, and we will have over here the word map of those things. Like you may include the first thing about the Himalayas, like as soon as you uh, and as soon as you listen the name Himalayas, what is the first thing comes to your mind? You may include about that. Okay, so we got the first response. I love the complexities found in the Himalayas, especially the changes of land cover and trees. Great. Mountains, exactly. Those are the most mighty and the young mountain ranges. It includes Mount Everest, right? The tallest peak in the world. Breathtaking environment, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Even I was surprised to see it's fantastic. It's snow, Yeah. Depletion of snow, life of organism most affected species. Exactly. The snow is getting much more less due to the climate change and the heat increasing in the northern Indian states. Sacred places, temples, ashrams, pilgrimage routes from one end to another. Okay. Okay, so many of you are aware of those fantastic things of the Himalayas. So we may go forward. So considering my journey to Leh, so I just departed from Mumbai to Delhi, having a kind of 3 hours of layover at Delhi, and then with the connecting flight to the Leh. So I will be sharing some aerial views of the Himalayas where you can you are able to see those things of the snow caps and the glaciers at the top of the peaks of the Himalayan ranges. So as soon as you take off from the Delhi in en route to the Leh, within 20 minutes you will be getting to see those Himalayan ranges. So first of all, there comes the Uttarakhand's greenish and the lavish those things, those mountains of the Himalayas, and after that suddenly these things started uh, to change, and you could see all those Himalayan ranges over there. So I captured this specific thing as the plane was adjusting to the tackle with the turbulence. So it was in between the troposphere. So I got this spectacular view of the clouds at the edge of the troposphere. Beneath that, these Himalayan ranges and these shadows and these dry mountains of the Himalayas, which are supposed to be the Ladakh's part. So this was much more exciting, and the reflection from those things from the snow caps and the Himalayan ranges was so bright and so in the as soon as you see the sun in the same way, as soon as you look at those things, you get a kind of some part of the blindness to the eyes as soon as you move your eyeballs towards the darker or the in the cabin. So those things were much more unique manner. So you can see these clouds fluffy, and after that these are the much more special. It might not be visible, yeah, over here. So you can see some glaciers are now in the off-white color, while some are in the whitish color. So this is a kind of identification that this whitish deposit of the snow cap is in the latest manner, while these off-white shades are literally old, or they are being affected by the atmospheric some kinds of elements, kind of sulfur or nitrogen. So this kinds of reaction you can see, and this is much more vital signals to the changes in the Himalayan region. In the third picture, you can see this glacial stream move with the much more uh, water over there. The thing is, like, we were fortunate enough that as during the 27th of July, in the first day, as we were approaching, there were some kinds of low pressure belt formed in the Bay of Bengal. So that pressure belt unfortunately proceeded towards the northern Indian states, and there was lots of cloud burst in the Uttarakhand region. So there were landfalls and all those things. But typically, it didn't affect the Ladakh's region, but the flights were affected drastically. So I think that day our flight was before our flight. There were many flights after and before, but during that day there was the last flight. After that, it was getting affected. So I need to, with regards to the formation of Himalayas, I need to know about something unique or some new things about those things, like which ocean existed between the Laurasia and the Gondwana continent during the Mesozoic era. So you may rank it in the your preference manner, the first preference will be the actual your answer, or what your guesses are in the from the first rank to the fourth rank. So first rank will be your much more nearest guess, and the fourth rank will be your the least guess. So you may again visit the Slido, and you can guess those ocean which existed between the Laurasia and Gondwana continents. Okay, Atlantic. Yeah, even I thought the same thing as I was learning about the formation. It is ocean. Okay. So it seems like there is a tie-up in the Tethys and the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. So we can move. Oh, so someone has ranked the Pacific Ocean also. Okay. Well, Tethys. Yeah, now and Thalassa Ocean. Okay. Okay, so the majority of people, again, there is tie-up. Well, this seems to be interesting. So there is tie-up between Tethys Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean at your nearest base guess, and your least guess tie-up is between Panthalassa Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so one of these ocean has been submerged totally into the like when those things when the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate got collided to one another, that ocean literally got dismissed, and those seabed got erupted. So you can see this Neo-Tethys ocean. Neo-Tethys in the sense like it's higher prone to the tectonic activity, and we are well known about the tectonic activity in the Himalayan region. The Nepal's
international.
Nepal's disaster, along with the in the Ladakh region also, and although along with in the Uttarakhand also. So those are the new tectonic plates beneath this ocean. But you can see during the Mesozoic era, this Indian subcontinent, why we call it as Indian subcontinent, because it literally detached from this African continent, and it evolved as a separate continent. So as soon as it approached to the Eurasian continent, it is being called as the Indian subcontinent. So this continental part of the Eurasia or the Asia, the sub part of those things, we call it as the Indian subcontinent. So moving to our next slide, you can see this Tethys Ocean is having those active subduction zone, or the these plates went through many of the plate changes and plate activities. So during those phase, this Tethys Ocean was existing. So as soon as this got collided with the Eurasian plate, that ocean seabed totally got disrupted. There were many kinds of volcanic activity along with those the collision activity. So that collision literally resulted to the formation of Himalayas. So there is a video that I would like to play so that you can get a proper understanding of how those things happen during that era. So you can see those landforms are getting separated. And as soon as this is the Tethys Ocean, okay. So this whole part is the Indian subcontinent, and it is getting collided with the Eurasian plate. Okay, that's okay. So you can see as soon as it got collided, the formation of Himalayas took place, and that seabed got erupted due to collision of those two plates. So geologically, if you step into the Leh or Ladakh, you are on the foreign land or you are on the Eurasian plate. Although in the geographical manner, geopolitical manner, it's the part of the Indian subcontinent and the India itself. So geological, this is the fascinating thing, that you are on the foreign land, but as soon as you come beneath in the southern side of the Ladakh, you are on the Indian plate. So this is what we were experiencing, and we were so excited to see those. There is a kind of suture zone that actually that this line actually separates the Indian continent, in the Indian plate, I'm sorry, and the Eurasian plate. So beneath that line, there is a kind of suture zone or the neotectonic plate, active tectonic plate that is being passing through those things. So we will see in the further in the story map itself. So these are the Himalayan expedition sites. The Saibu village. The major reason to visit the Saibu village was in August of 2010, there was a major cloudburst happened, but fortunately there were only the property loss, or not much more the life loss over there. So that resulted, that ignited, or that sparked the minds of the geologists and the scientists that something wrong is going on in the Himalayan region. So they started exploring those sites, and they finally confirmed that there is something about the global warming aspect and also the climate change aspect that is affecting the Himalayan region. And as the Himalaya is a fragile one, we need to preserve those things. So Himalaya is actively signaling those changes getting impacted on itself. There is a Sokar Ramsar site, the Indus Yarlung Suture zone, just like I said before, that the plate, that the line or the zone that separates the Indian plate and Eurasian plate, and the Puga geothermal system. So this geothermal system is so strong all over India that it can, it is much more active compared to the another geothermal. It is a small trailer, you may say, of the or the similar manner of the what Yellowstone geysers are. So those are the high geysers, but this is the some short up to 1 to 5 meters, sparking out the water from the beneath the earth. But it is same system what we can relate with the Yellowstone geysers. So now coming to the story map. We will be visiting story map. 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So I have also shared this link into the presentation, also in the Globe Observer's profile that recently is in the trend on the Facebook. You may visit those story of my profile. Over there also I have shared that story link. So coming towards the story map, this is the major expedition site that I would like to introduce with you. Before that, you may see this spectacular view of this Himalayan region. So you could get the actual location, that like where are these expedition sites located over there. So there were four sites of this expedition planned by the organizing team. The first one was the Saibu cloudburst site. So zooming towards this thing. Yeah, so this is the Leh city, actual Leh city. This is a strip where you get landed, and there are two ways. Either you can approach from Shimla or from the Jammu Kashmir by road, or you can take flight from Chandigarh or Delhi directly to Leh. And this is the Saibu village. So you can see this village is expanded at the much more higher level. The cloudburst happened over here. Okay. So, sorry. I feel like anyone. Okay, good. Yeah. So cloudburst happened over here, but the thing was the height was in the descending order. So that happened in a very rigorous manner, or in the very violent manner, that it totally was flow through. It totally took all the rock debris of the Himalaya, the Trans-Himalayan region, carry out all those streams to the foothills of the Himalayan ranges and mixing with this river. So these are all the glacier streams. Okay, the thing is, like, I purposely marked this thing so that you can get this actual view when I will be sharing this unique spectacular view. Like, you could get the trees on the one side, some part of the vegetation, even though Ladakh is termed to be a cold desert, but you can see those trees and the glacier streams at the same time, and these sand ramps or the sand on the another side. So this is a kind of very stunning experience I had. Like, whenever we hear the cold, any kind of desert thing, so we only see this sand over there, kind of lots of heat. Although I agree, being at high altitude, the radiation of the ultraviolet was much more higher than what we are having in the Deccan region of Indian subcontinent. But skipping those things, what the first thought comes in our mind is the desert part is the only sand. You cannot see any kind of vegetation except the cactus or those thorny parts. But at the same time, you cannot identify the rivers over there. Okay, so the Ladakh region is having such kind of whole kind of biospheric topology where you could get to experience the desert. At the same time, you can get to experience the snow, the glacial streams or the water, and some sorts of vegetation in the particular developed regions. And moving towards, yeah. So we were traveling by road to access the remote region. So there is kind of 50 kilometers of huge high altitude ghats present in the Ladakh. So that road were mind blowing, in the spectacular way. But the thing is, as soon as you reach to the high altitude, you need to acclimatize at least for 24 hours. But the thing is, while traveling the same, you could not experience those things. But as soon as you step out from those region, okay, or from the vehicle, you could experience some sort of draining kinds of thing or any kind of suffocation, just because the oxygen levels are very low at those heights. But seeing like the Leh city is at the 3,500 meters above sea level, while you are traveling to the high pass or in this by road, it literally increments to the or it literally gets advanced in its height from 4,000 to 5,000 meters above. Also, there is on the other side of Ladakh, it can reach towards the 7,000 meters above also. But during our plan, our route was from this, so we could see this we could experience that second high pass of the world's second high pass. So that was a unique thing. And this is the second site of the suture zone, just like I said. Now you can clearly identify those things. Like, this is the Indus River is flowing in between. Like, Indus River is the river that separates the Eurasian plate and the Indian plate. So this part, please focus onto my cursor so that you will be able to track. This part is the Indian plate, while this part is the Eurasian plate. And the point where it exactly matches, and those geologists have identified thing, is this Trishul division of the Indian Army, what they have in the Karo village. So popularly it is known as the Trishul division, but according to the naming of those village, you could see this as a Karo village. You can see this Indus River flowing from here. I have many pictures of the Indus River where you could get to see over there. Now going towards the major another two sites, the Soka, This is the Sokar wetland complex, and this is the Puga geothermal system. There are many other geothermal systems, but the Puga is much more fascinating compared to the other geothermal system. So this is a dried lake, but in its ancient ages, this was the highest lake in the Himalayan region. So there are paleo shorelines, or the paleo in the sense means ancient shorelines, where you can get the evidence of the water level of height up to the 90 meters high. But now it's getting dry up, and it's this is the, I think, image taken during the winter season. So everywhere the snow, okay, that's great. Everywhere the snow, you can see, is being deposited. But we have another exciting thing of the Landsat imagery that is being shared by Michael Taylor, thanks to Dorian and Brian, who in the such short notice they shared that Landsat image while I was just getting touched down in the Ladakh. So over there you can see the actual current region in the July's imagery. Over here, this lake system is totally depend on the glacial deposits and some sort of rains that are now approaching this region. This is the rain shadow region. I must add this thing. This is the rain shadow region, but due to some changes in the Indian monsoon system, now the Ladakh is also getting kind of rains over there. And this is the this is whole system is the salt base, the brine system. You can get the salt deposits over here, and this is the freshwater lake. So this kind of thing is much more contrasting. Like this is being connected through a small stream of the water, but we never find those salt deposits over here. This is the freshwater lake. You can even taste that water. The water is so clean and kind of, its taste is like I could not explain in the world in kind of words. So that is much more kind of appreciable, I must say, experience, I must say, to the team that they identified this difference over there. And now to the geothermal system. So the thing is, these species or the vegetations over these systems are so unique. I mean, you couldn't get those things in the other parts of the region. These are high altitude extremophiles. The organism found over there are termed as extremophile, that can sustain the high UV radiations along with those the salt based systems and the high altitude, like the lower oxygen. So this is much more unique vegetation you can see over here. Okay, so that's it about the introduction to the 4 sites. Now there is a small video that I would like to introduce to you all about the after movie of our whole expedition, so you can get more idea about the drone view of these sites. So I'm playing this.
here's our silica deposits, and we collected from the artificial pool, and they are going to be useful, and they will tell us about the origin story of hot spring and if there's any other microbial growth. So we have collected the mud sample and the silica.
As for this program, we are looking into the hot springs, the two aspects of hot springs, that is the origin of life and the preservation of microbes throughout the evolution of hot springs that we found in the Sindhu deposits as I showed.
Hello everyone. The hot spring is very marshy, so to reach there you have to cross a lot of mud. But it's kind of a pleasant experience, I have been said.
So now you may have got some clear idea about how the expedition was and what was the aim of those things. Moving towards the detailed view of the cloudburst site, as I already introduced, this is the actual stream formed due to the cloudburst. These are the rocks that have been carried out with the debris from the Trans-Himalayan mountains. Why I'm saying the Trans-Himalaya? So the place where I'm currently, like where this picture has been taken, this is the Trans-Himalaya, the Himalaya in the Eurasian plate. Okay. So they are being named as this Trans-Himalaya, but in the another picture I will show you in the clear explanation, but you can see these Himalayan ranges over here. So this is the actual Zanskar range of the Tethys in Himalaya, which are situated on the Indian plate. Okay. So this stream is being formed, and now the locals have been created dam and all those things to preserve the fresh water from the glaciers, along with making it as a less prone to the flooding of those regions. And you can see the trees over here only, the pine trees and the typical trees found in the Himalayan region. But if you move towards the southern side of the Ladakh region or the another sides, there is no any kind of trees. There is only the vegetation of the high altitude salty vegetation that are being dependent totally on the salt itself. So this is much more interesting. Yeah, so I recorded the coordinates, and this is the actual height elevation of the Sabu village. Okay. Now this thing is much more, as soon as I learned about the cloudburst, so I went to the world view, as we are already know, as soon as we submit to the Globe Observer our details of those region cloud cover and all those things, it get matched with the overpassing satellite. So as soon as it get matched with the overpassing satellite, either it is the Aqua, Terra or Calypso, we get this detailed view of the cloud satellite at that moment when it was overpassing. So I just ran behind the dates to see what actually happened over there in the form of cloud formation. So to the right it was 7th of August, but I'm sorry, to the left, and to the right it is the 8th of August. So you can see this transition within a single day. But the thing is, you never can predict whether how the cloudburst could happen. It's still much hard to predict or give the 100% predictions that at this particular region the cloudburst is going to happen. Yes, but no, it is much more hard. So you can see this typical formation of the cloud over the Ladakh, but the thing is, no one ever expected that these things is going to happen. So this is much more sensitive towards the settlement, human settlements, like you never predict. And the same thing currently is going on in the whole state of Maharashtra, out of which the 24 district of the Maharashtra, 21 are affected and recently got submerged due to the cyclone Gulab. So this thing is much more terrific. Yeah. Now moving towards the Sabu sand ramp and the Trans-Himalaya, you can see this sand ramp. So sand ramp is basically the massive deposits of the alluvial, fluvial and the talus deposits that occurred during the formation of the foothills of those mountains. So as soon as it got deposited, the sand activity began. And the thing is, you can see in this picture, there is smoothness in the sand ramp. The reason behind this thing is like it gets deposited to the layer by layer. Okay. The thing, so in the winter, okay, in the winter the snow totally covers this region. As you have seen the image, satellite imagery of the SoCal site, where that was totally covered with snow. In the same way, the whole region is getting covered by snow, and during that it forms a kind of permafrost. Okay, permafrost is the solid, any kind of permanent to temporary layer, whatever we have been finding in our regular, what the soil in our region is. The similar way, it is the soil formation of, or this due to snow, permanent deposits of the snow, that leads to form the permafrost. So those glacial activities, the wind activity in the summer and the glacial activity in the winter, are resulting to form these layers by layers of these sand deposits. So if we go deep dive into those things, you can find the temperature variation. Although we couldn't get to deep dive into these deposits because it was very hard, and the instruments with us were kind of normal typical expedition instruments. So you require the crane kind of thing over here. Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying about those things, these are the actual Tethen Himalayas, or the Zanskar ranges, or the actual Himalayas situated on the Indian plate. So this is the seabed that got erupted during the collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. This is the Stoke village beneath these mountain ranges, at the foothills of mountain ranges, and this site where I was standing and capturing this image was on the Eurasian plate. So this is much more fascinating. Even I feel much more special to be on the foreign land. Yeah, now the thing is, these are the lay berries or the sea buckthorn. These are the berries get ripe into the pale or yellowish or the orange color, and you can actually have its juice. So it's in that kind of tangy flavor, similar to what lemons or the orange taste. And it contains a highly antioxidants and some kind of large amount of vitamin C, which is 12 times more than orange. Yes, the vitamin C found in these lay berries are 12 times more than orange. The reason behind this is the high altitude region, where you really need those high energy, and your body need to be getting adapted and capable enough to experience that. The high altitude concepts. So see the nature's weird or any kind of special thing, like at the each level of those things in the region, it is providing you the different aspects so that you can sustain in that region, right? I was also wondering like how people are getting, there is less food, there is nearly less food or any kind of vegetation. All that is they are depending on the Indian states, other Indian states that is being imported towards them. But looking at these things, I'm much more amazed. And now this is the wide angle view I have captured, so, to get more. So at the same time, you could experience the trees, the monsoon clouds, or the region, the sand dunes, the glacial activity or the glacial streams, water, and yes, this Martian, this Trans-Himalayan region. The thing is, you may have seen some references to the Mars site. So these are, if you capture this image, skip those things using your photography tool and make it as a reddish. You couldn't identify whether it's taken on the Mars or on the Ladakh region. So these are the analog site to the Mars And what special thing is like Mars was in this ancient Mars was similar to what Ladakh today is. So this is what is exciting everyone to have those expeditions at these sites to understand how Mars could have been in these ancient times. And those changes are currently happening in Ladakh might be responsible for those changes that happen in the Mars, and now it's totally dried up red planet. So that could be a reason. That could be a tracking of those things happening in Ladakh itself. There are some more snaps from the sites I would like to make you view. Yeah, so you may see that this thing is much more closer to like closer to where we are standing, but no, you will be facing much more illusions while you are in the Himalayan region or the remote Himalayan regions. Like it is being close, it seems to closer, but it's around 2 to 3 kilometers far away. Okay, and you couldn't climb this thing. It literally gets, you could get sleep over here, and you need more energy or more oxygen to do this thing of activity. And this was the day 2. Day 1 was totally for the acclimatization, and many of my colleagues were experiencing the high altitude sickness. So there was not much more the rigorous activities in the day 2. Just the normal acclimatizing activities were been taken. This is the Himalayan magpies, where we have got to see. And most interesting thing, like the birds over there also in the black and white format. Rarely there are different kinds of birds you could see in the colorful format, but these are even I got shocked. The sparrows were also in the black and white. You can see these some monasteries, and the housing, and the locals have been increasing their height of their house above the actual stream passing through it, so that they can avoid the future cloudburst disasters. And this is the restoration of flood dam. Okay, there is some Buddhist monastery that I can picture, but in the tight schedule, I missed the chance to visit the monastery. But I felt much more peaceful over there. It was something unique, and somewhere like you are in the heaven kind of experience. Yeah, much more silent thing. I was also comparing the actual GPS of the with the organizing team, those are longitudes and latitudes, those coordinates, and the elevation along with my iPhone's sensors, so that I can get to know like how accurate the iPhone or the smartphones work in while guessing. The thing I found special over here is like there were no network over there, but still it could get the latitudes and longitudes and coordinates, and even the height that actually matched with the GPS. This is strange, even I'm finding this thing. So this is our whole team that got filtered. I would like to say filtered with who are actually fit to go to the higher altitude. Okay, some colleagues were left back to the Leh because they couldn't make it, and they couldn't adapt that thing, so they were under observation. Thanks to the organizing team, that their medical support was so strong that everyone was able to find themselves, whether he is fit or unfit. Yeah. So we were standing on these sutras, as I mentioned. Okay, as I mentioned before, this is this in the Yarlung Suture zone, where beneath where we are standing is the active tectonic line passing between India and Eurasia. To the over here to the left, there is this is the Indian plate, and this is the Eurasian plate. So every geologist has its dream to have take this picture of this unique, spectacular site, tectonic site, where it is being distinguished, that the plates are being separated. And I was fortunate enough to be part of this. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Tanglangla high pass. This high pass is the second most world's second high pass at the actual elevation of 5,340 meters above mean sea level. Uh, being cautious and being aware of the fact that you will be receiving the less oxygen. You could only wait up to 5 to 10 minutes. More than that could cause you to be unconscious, and you could actually need oxygen. Although there were oxygen tank cylinders carried along us for the safety purpose, but the thing is you couldn't sustain much more than 10 to maximum 15 minutes, depending on person to person. So adaptation of the high altitude drastically varies between person to person. Even I didn't face high altitude sickness, but as soon as I reached to the remote site, while working, there was slight headache, not much more. But contrast was, the thing is, like, as soon as I came back to my region in this Maharashtra state, which is my town is above 590 meters above sea level, like the low altitude. I faced the low altitude sickness. Yeah, this is the contrast about those things. But I never felt the high altitude sickness in the major terms. And for the first time, in the history of NASA Globe program, they received the high altitude landforms. So as I said, there is some tricks to identify the globe protocols where you are heading to. According to that region, you need to modify or customize your globe protocol bundle. I will come to that point later on. But the thing is, over here, I could only take the landform because there were no any kind of trees or water. And yes, the clouds were also there. So, but I never, but the thing is, I couldn't track the satellite on the go while traveling to the remote region. As soon as I reached the remote region, I started tracking the satellites. I will also come to that point later on. You can see the steep slopes. These are the Tethys Ocean seabed. Okay, they are so breathtaking views. Yeah, the most important thing, this is the side cross section of the actual Himalaya. So what I was mentioning is the Indus Airlink Suture zone. So IZ, this is the zone. Also the Ladakh, the Eurasian plate part of the Ladakh is also called as the Ladakh batholith. So this is also another term to mention. And this Himalayan Tethys, this is the Tethys Himalaya, or actual the Indian plate. So from this part, this is the Indian plate, while separating this fault line afterwards, this starts with the Eurasian plate. And this is the top view of the Himalayan region. So our study lay was in the Trans-Himalaya. As I mentioned, this is the Eurasian plate, while this is the Tethys Himalaya, or the Indian plate start from here. So even some parts of the Nepal belongs to the Eurasian plate also, while majority of the Nepal is in the Indian plate. Now moving towards the Soka Ramsar sites. Let me. So this total vegetation is being salt, is total depends on the salt itself. You won't believe this thing, but in this cold desert region, you can find these salt deposits. This is the freshwater lake. Yeah, and this land is much more marshy in the form of, like, this whole water depends on the glacier activities. In the least manner, it depends on some sort of rains that falls due to change in the Indian monsoon. but it whole total depends on the glacier. So this glacier melts in the summer, while it get freeze in the winter itself, logically. This is the thermocast, I'm sorry, moss mounts. This terrain literally denotes us that this region is the permafrost region. And if you bury, or I'm sorry, if you dig beneath this region, you will find some sorts of different layers of formations of these soil patterns. And also you can see the rat holes, the Himalayan rat holes. They are so, the movement is so rapid that I couldn't click the picture of them, but they were in kind of in the whitish manner, small, but in the total white to grayish
शब्द आहे
shade. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, this is the Landsat imagery, where you can find this freshwater lake and the hypersaline lake connecting with some sort of small stream, while the Sokar lake is spread over the 1800 hectares to the northern side. So this part is the northern side, while this is the southern side, while the freshwater lake of the also named as the Stars Sapok, so is around 438 hectares. So in the sense means the lake. Okay, in the Ladakhi term, it is the lake. Yeah, we found this rock. This is the mica schist deposit found at the Soka. These are the you will find many kinds of different metamorphic rocks in Ladakh, because due to high pressure, due to collision, they are being erupted, and now they are at the actual ground level. So the thing is like this rock, what this rock suggests us, when the collision happens, different sorts of the sedimentary rocks are forced to the enormous heights. Okay, right from the almost 9,000 above sea level, they get erupted. After that, you can find this schist group of the rock, which is being suppressed to the 400 degrees Celsius of the temperature. Usually, whenever the collision happens, there is kind of volcanic activity itself, the earthquake activity takes place. So these things go hand in hand, and they actually got exposed to those different kinds of temperature, and takes form in these different kinds of rocks. This is the salt deposits of, yeah. So you can find these deposits all over the Sokar region of the Moss Mounds, where this vegetation is totally dependent on the salt itself. Even I plucked and tested that grass. I was so keen to know like whether it tastes in salty manner, but yeah, it do taste salt in the kind of salty manner also. So this confirms that they are totally dependent on the salt, exposed to the high temperature, high UV radiation, high altitude and low oxygen itself. Now, as I said, like this lake in its ancient part had been up to 90 meters high. So these are the paleo shorelines that actually indicates or denotes us about the history of this lake. The water was at this top of the mountain ranges.
हो सकता था, वो भी ऐसे हो सकता था और वो भी ऐसे हो सकता था, but they just abruptly ended in the triangular way. So that means a fault is passing.
So Dr. Binida Futrial, she's the geologist who was explaining us about the how to identify whether the fault is passing beneath this any kind of region. So the thing is, like, if you if you come across any kind of triangular structure of these things, this totally indicates that there is the probability of the fault passing beneath this region. So they actually the first crew in the first crew, I was the member of the second crew, but the first crew actually made the GPM reading, the GPR reading, that is the ground penetrating radar, which actually scans the tectonic lines and the plates. So they identified those and confirmed that the fault is being passing, and now in the future missions they are going to install the sensors that are going to track and monitor the actual tectonic activity beneath this, so that we can get more predictions about how the earthquake is being happening, or if those things that happened in past, we can prevent these things in the near future. What happened in Nepal mostly. And we were standing on the lacustrine, which is the actual seabed or the remains of the seabed of the lake. Okay, this is whole part of the lacustrine, and this part is much more brittle. Like you could stand for up to 5 minutes at the single place. Otherwise, you could get fall beneath into this thing. Yeah, this is the wild Tibetan wild ass, or the kyang in the local term, what they call it as a kyang, which is the hybrid form of the donkey and the horse. Yes, and these species are much more rare and only found in this Soka Ramsar site, that they are totally dependent on this grassland or the wetland complex. They graze on the salt dependence part only. And to preserve the species, there was some the locals were telling us about those things, like these are inauspicious. You couldn't carry the weight or the loads on them, otherwise it will be getting affected in the impure form. So that kind of belief was just to preserve the species. Normally what we see, if we find any kind of anything useful or any resource useful, we just utilize it in the over form. So the local just made this kind of story to preserve this species. There were another species, but we came across this unique biodiversity. Also this Sokar Basin, there are snow leopard and the Tibetan wolf. Yeah, thing is, like there is small village, Thugze village, like they come, they settle for the summer part while they move back to the lake in the winter, because there is nothing, this total region is totally covered in the snow, and the temperature goes much more less than up to the minus 30 to 20 degrees Celsius. So they literally move in the winter, but they were saying like so literally these settlements are having dogs for some their purpose as their general pets. So at night there were much more quarreling of dogs. So we were not aware of what happened when we asked them in the morning what was the reason why the dogs were barking. So they were saying that over here there is no threat of any kind of thief, but the thing is wolf visit at night. Yes, so there were Tibetan wolves that were visiting at night, and there was some quarreling between the general dogs and the species, but we didn't got chance to see the wolf. This is the Moss Mount region. Also, I must add one thing is the weather over there literally changes rapidly, right from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you could see clear view of sky over here. This is much more, this felt me a kind of sensitive region. That is why it is being added into the Ramsar site to preserve those things. But what we experienced, that these clouds were totally cleared up in the next in its next 30 minutes. So that is much special over here. And you could see these low level clouds, like there is precipitation happening. We could clearly view that rains and those things right from here. And as I mentioned about the illusion, so you could find this thing close enough if you are in person over there. But if you travel, or if you count the distance, measure the distance from here to here, it's literally around 5 kilometers. And this is the village of the Thugze, what I was telling before. that the settlements come here for the summer and for grazing purpose. This illusion is everywhere in the Himalaya. Yeah, the day we visited, there were significant thunderstorm activity going on in the Ladakh region, and we got to experience this unique manner of thunderstorm, and along with the sandstorm. So you could say this is the sand getting up abruptly, and this is the thunderstorm arriving from the Uttarakhand. So I was much conscious about the direction before coming to this site. I studied whole geography. So this was the southwest direction of from where this thunderstorm were heading, and I was damn sure about there were no internet, nothing. You are totally disconnected from the whole entire world. You don't know what is happening in the entire world due to there is no connection logically. The thing, like, I was feeling something is wrong in this direction, because this thing is totally heading up to the rain shadow region. So as soon as we ended up in the last day to the Leh, as soon as I got my internet back, I got to know that there was a extreme cloudburst and the rainfall in the Uttarakhand region, and the total connectivity with Ladakh was being blocked during that phase. So yeah, I was right about my assumptions. Yeah, you could clearly view the dust storms. But the spells of the rain were much more less. Literally, it was something like you are sprinkling in your farm or in your garden
How many
in that
times
same manner. But the wind activity and the lightning activity were much more violent over there.
how many
This
times
is these are the snaps. Yeah, I got to learn about this measuring plate of what geologists use to measure the sand, or the size of the sand or the grain, like here. So they just put in on the soil or the on the surface, and they take a photograph of this thing to identify density of the grains. This is the paleo shoreline, as you can see. Literally, this distance was around 10 kilometers. You won't believe this thing, but this was much more far. And as soon as we were reaching up to the like going to in the proximity of this area, we were experiencing lower oxygen and a kind of heaviness, like something is being fetching us back or grounding us down in the kind of strong gravitational pull kind of thing. This is the Sokar lake bed. So whole this region was the actual Sokar lake, and you could see these variations in the lake of the lake bed. So this is actually somewhat in the dense manner, in the strong kind of firm manner of this layer, while the beneath layer is much more smooth, kind of powdered manner. Thanks to Dr. Siddharth Pandey, who is also the actual organizer and the coordinator of this program. He identified this unique shrimp in the Sokar lake. So thing is, we got much more surprised to see this thing living in the salt itself, literally. We found two different flowers in the moss mounds. This whitish one, and sorry, the image is taking low. Okay, and this yellowish one. Other than that, we didn't find any kind of flora vegetation in this region. Because you can see this breathtaking view. And this marshy land is this deposit of this water is totally depend, as I mentioned, of the glacier activity. So it is getting reduced. But as soon as the summer melts in the month of May, you could see this whole thing getting submerged into the water. Now, the most exciting thing is the Puga geothermal system. As I told, it is similar to what Yellowstone large geysers behave. So this system is much more different than other geothermal systems found in India, as well as different worlds of parts of world. As mentioned in the video, these are the sinter deposits or the hydrothermal deposits that are being collected at the edge of those system, the geothermal system. So these deposits are highly boron rich. Yes, this is the unique specification of the Puga geothermal system, that you will be finding boron at the much more larger quantity. Although many other geothermal systems are having sulfur and those deposits, but along with that, the boron is highly found in this Puga geothermal system. And also they are going to these samples are being transferred to the particular labs of the organizing team. So they are going to identify whether there are any kind of living organisms present in these deposits or not. Using those things, we could much more get a clear picture of the organisms, how they sustain in those high altitude region and extreme regions. This was, as soon as we reached the geothermal system, the weather was in this manner, when any much more foggy, and due to a height of the high altitude, the clouds were actually settled on the surface. But the thing is, as soon after 10 minutes, it got changed to this clear, sunny, bright picture. Isn't this fascinating? The whole scenario of changing of climate and the fragile environment over there. Yeah, so to reach geothermal system, you need to hop through this Moss Mount. So this was much more enjoyable in the form of the Takeshi's Castle. What Takeshi's Castle adventure is. So we experienced the same thing, and they were so bouncy. These Moss Mounts are actually permafrost deposits. They were so bouncy. We felt like it couldn't hold our weight, but it indeed could sustain our weight, and we could literally stand for a larger period of time. Thing was like before reaching this, we need to pass through the glacial stream. That glacial stream was so cold, literally just like as soon as you take ice on your bare hand, what you feel, the same feel was in the stream itself. But as soon as I step into this system, it got much more warm. So the surface is so warm over here. You could literally feel the temperature difference, just because beneath this there is a kind of geothermal activity going on, and because in response to that, the water beneath the ground is getting pumped up outside in the region. Yeah, also another fact of the expedition is the sketching part. What I learned for the first time, you have to sketch whatever you see, whatever you observe, so that you could refer it in the literal another manner. And using the sketching, you could literally explain those things, this height, and you could label this sketch also. So this is the part of the expedition. These are the total different vegetation, totally dependent on the warmth of the geothermal system. What we saw in Sokar was cold air desert. Literally the temperature was ranging between 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, as it was summer, of course, but in winter it goes in minus itself. But the thing is, this biodiversity has been brought up by due to the geothermal warmth and they are totally dependent on the geothermal power. These are the marshy land, and this vegetation literally differs from each other. Like if I see closely, as the photograph I couldn't take it, but see closely this part of section, it will totally differ from this part of section. So this is the uniqueness of the Puga geothermal system. And on this dry land, you could see this green vegetation. That's so fascinating. The view was extremely amazing. Yeah, many times you could see the pine trees, the leaves or the branches are in the conical manner, but the grasslands or those systems are totally opposite to the pine structure. Considering its location in the Himalayas, this thing literally is totally different from the other pine things. Yeah, you could see it's totally in the upward manner. So as I said, the deposits of the sinter and boron, all those things get collected on this part. This whole part is the sinter deposits. Also, in the same manner, what we saw in the Sokar, the same floral species we came across. Yeah, and this is the conserved wildlife. So actually there were many different projects related to the petroleum and the gasoline that were actually going to happen form over here, but the locals and the environmental preservists have opposed those projects to maintain its purity and its fragility, to preserve, because this region totally fragile. Okay, so we need to preserve this thing because this is the part that is going to signal us in the future manner what kind of thing in the serious manner are going to affect those regions, so that we can predict. Now coming to the globe protocol, so as I said, for the first time in the NASA globe's history, it received its first high altitude land cover, cloud and the hydrosphere data. So this is the Tanglangla high pass land cover. Now using globe visualization system, I was not sure whether this any kind of observation will be taken in this region. So I just saw the counts of data, whether it is being collected or not. But since 1995 till 2020, there were no data collected at this region. So for the first time, we got this data. Okay. So considering the biosphere protocol, as there were no trees over there, so I could only take the part of biosphere protocol was the land cover. So the SOCAR, I took the different various parts of the SOCAR's land cover, like age of these system of SOCAR Ramsar sites, at the age, at the outside of the SOCAR, then while I was in the lake part. So there were 4 different observation of the land cover. You could see these land cover observations. So Moss Mound's land cover were also much more essential and planned as I planned for the Moss Mounds, just because these are rarely rare species or of the biodiversity, and despite of Arctic and Antarctic region, you could find this permafrost in the Ladakh or the Himalayan region. So in the Arctic and Antarctic, you could only find the ice part, but over here you could see this vegetation grown on the cold temperatures and the salt, the extreme temperature. So this was a unique reason behind my collection of and now coming towards the atmosphere protocol. So as I mentioned that I collected some cloud observations. So as soon as it thunderstorm reached to the in the Ladakh region, I collected these and as we all know that the Globe Observer is having that feature that you could offlinely you could in the offline manner you could upload collect data, and as soon as you get connected with the internet you could upload the same into the server. So I collected this thing during that phase. The thing I was much more excited about the Terra. So as I said before, you should keep the track of the satellites, cloud observing satellites, CloudSats. Either it is Aqua or the Terra satellites. Just because like what I experienced, according to my experience, I was not connected to the internet. So logically, there were no notification from the Globe Observer module about the overpassing of the satellite over the India. So I was tracking since 1 year for the satellite. So I found the average timings between the satellites of the Terra. Like Terra actually overpasses in between the 11 a.m. To 12 p.m. So during that phase, Terra actually overpasses through India, while Aqua passes in the afternoon. So during 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. during this timeline, it passes through the Indian subcontinent in the afternoon. So I was constantly taking those things into the consideration, and as soon as I came across the timings of the Terra and the Aqua, the average timing, I started giving the back-to-back like collecting the back-to-back data of the cloud observation, so that those timing the plus 15 minutes and the minus 15 minutes in that period, definitely one observation is going to be getting matched with the satellite, or the satellite's observation and my observation is going to match. So that literally matched. I was much more fortunate, and my method of tracking those satellite actually proved that in whenever you are out of the internet or the any kind of network, you could apply these methods in a kind of studying manner or in the kind of research manner. So I got those data from the Terra. This is the world view during the data during the 31st of July, and this is the rapid response. So I think the trajectory of the Terra was from this part. So rarely it got the Jammu and Kashmir's part over this corner. Please don't assume this as the Pangong Lake. This is the another lake present in the Afghanistan. So this is the part of the Jammu and Kashmir. So I got this data, but somewhat I managed, like it was the first time of my expedition, so that's why. And now you could get those things like this comparison, as you're already aware of the cloud observation techniques. Okay.
Yash,
Yeah,
can we take 2 minutes break now because this is too long?
yeah, sure, we may.
Yeah, because let us take the picture. Nishi, she take the picture from Thailand for all the webinars. She will take the picture, and after that, she said that she may have to go. So if you
Yeah,
can,
sure.
we can have a let's break. Is okay?
Yes, we may.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, Nishi, can you
thank
take
you.
the picture?
Okay, can I take picture?
Yeah,
Everyone,
please.
could you please
Everyone open the
start
camera.
your
light.
camera? Yeah. Your
Yes.
presentation is very nice,
Thank you.
but I wanna take picture everyone
Yeah,
first.
please, everyone open the
Okay.
camera, please. Yes, I see Professor Pelia. Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Okay, I'm waiting for someone. Yeah, try to start the camera. Okay, everyone, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Say cheese. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's send to the email.
It's sneezy.
Yes, how many time more you will take?
More 15 minutes left now.
15
Yeah,
more.
we are at the end only.
Yeah, because like we were 55 when we started, now we are 36. So try to, yeah, it's wonderful. And this dry desert, cold dry desert is really wonderful place. Okay, please
Yeah.
continue. I'm sorry breaking you. Because
No
you
issues.
have-
Yeah, sure. I will continue.
It's okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
So this is all about the NASA Globe protocol that I took. Also, you can have a look over the other over the story map for your detailed information. Also, I collect coming towards the hydrosphere protocol, which is the last protocol I collected over there. I measure the pH and the salinity data. So the water pH at the SOCAR was in between the ranging greater than 7.4, while the fresh water, obviously naturally it will be neutral, and the salinity was hypersaline. Usually the SOCAR is the salt like, and the fresh water was the salinity was actually the fresh. We couldn't find any kind of saline particles over there. So this is the Puga geothermal observations you could get. Okay, so now coming back to the store, as I mentioned, the selection protocol. So how would you decide to select a particular globe protocol suite, or how you customize those suit? So first of all, I must mention beside that thing that you must have your you must know your scientist trait. So that scientist trait must be like you are curious, or the courageous, creative, persistent, open-minded, or critical thinkers. You don't need to be have those all traits at the same time, but at least one trait could lead you towards the scientific development of your own skills. Okay, so that is the another aspect. So after that, you must understand the region and the history and the geography, whichever you're visiting to take any kind of observation or the expedition. You must make sure the basics of those things, the geological aspects and the geographical factors. Okay, so using those things, using these three parts, you could easily identify which protocol is suitable for that particular region, and you could customize that protocol according to your own instruments, whatever you have with you. And also, as I mentioned, always keep track of satellites, NASA Earth observation satellites, just because the internet doesn't guarantee in every region, particularly in the remote areas. So using that calculation and those techniques and tricks, you could match your data with those satellites, and always plan to work with your local partners. There were many local students from the Ladakh Science Foundation that made us understand about the Ladakh in the more detailed manner. So this helps us to understand the region and prioritize your fieldwork. Your fieldwork must be prioritized. Like first of all, you need to whether you need to collect the landform, because at the higher height you could get a clear picture, but as soon as you descend to the lower altitude, you couldn't get that kind of perspective of the landform. So depending on these visiting sites, you must prioritize your fieldworks. Okay, so this is about the how globe protocol can be selected and customized according to your own perspective. Giving example of my globe protocol Himalayan suit. So as I mentioned, the atmosphere, I could only take the cloud cover, precipitation, and the air temperature. Precipitation was the thing like in the current, in the apparent manner, the monsoon was heading towards Ladakh. So I could take that observation. If the Ladakh was totally sunny, bright, I couldn't take that precipitation data. The biosphere, while the pedosphere, the soil temperature was, as I mentioned, those things was totally varying in the geothermal region of the Puga system. So before stepping into the geothermal mounts, it was totally cold. But as we were barefoot, just because we need to cross, the land was marshy, we couldn't carry our shoes, so we were barefoot. So that thing literally helped us to sense the soil temperature or the ground temperature. And the hydrosphere was included as kind of water pH and the salinity, as the SOCAR was the salt and brine lake. So definitely I would prefer the salinity to measure it. And the NASA Earth observation satellites. So with which kind of satellite, possible satellites, we could get maximum data matched with those things. Now coming to, before heading towards there are some another set of pictures. 1 second. That will give you a clear picture image of the seabed of this thing. So this is the actual valley where we stopped for taking some observations. So this is the Tethyan seabed, as you can see, that got abruptly outside, collided and ending up into the tall mountains forming Himalayas. So you could see this variation of the rocks ranging. So as this brownish rock is actually the mudstone rock category. See, so these species are also totally different, as they are as they were natively in the ocean, and now they are exposed to the higher altitude and the total air without water. So many of those species got ended up, but some the algae deposits and those things to take place frequently over there. This is this particular view of the Indus River, as I was saying. This part is the Indian plate or the Tethyan Himalayas, and where we are standing was the Eurasian plate. Yeah, so only the thing I could find in Leh, outside of Leh, was these pine trees. But thing is, like, we were traveling, so I couldn't approach over here, and I couldn't take the tree measurement. So this is this particular view from where this view was taken from the Thukse monastery. Yeah, as we were heading up to the higher altitude to the land pass, these are the hard ice formation glacial deposits present in the at the side of the roads. So yeah, this is the monastery that is much more at the higher situated at the higher altitude, and you could get a spectacular view of the whole region of the separation of the right from separation of the plates to the unique diversity of Leh. As I said, this was the lichen deposits. So we took that, and we literally found one of the extremophils in this lichen. It was the brother, we call it as a brother of the tardigrade. I guess it was, I couldn't remember that name, but the tardigrade's brother. It was tardigrade is different species, but the this species was totally different. I guess it's retro. 1 minute. Rotifers. So the rotifers were observed for the first time in the Himalayas in this barren lichen. Yeah, so they do exist in the Himalayas. We found this was the resort where we were staying in at the Leh. It was so breathtaking, and you could find the Himalayan bees over here. They are having those pollen baskets, and they are so calm. Even they didn't attack you. Even you go closer to them, just like the Himalayan trait, the calmness. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it was so hard to say bye bye, because I was about to because I totally acclimatized to the high altitude region, and now I'm going back to my home.
Sure.
And you could I got across through this rainbow formation while I was airborne. So that was spectacular view to see rainbow, not from the ground but from the above, right from the air. And you could see this valley. So this is the Uttarakhand. Below us was the Uttarakhand, where the cloudburst took place, and those rivers can be clearly seen overflowing throughout the stream. Yeah. So another last part was the twilight magic. So as soon as we were heading back to Mumbai from Delhi, there was some sort of ATC holding to get clear. So our flight was taking a circling as per the guidelines from the ATC. So I came across this twilight part. This was so breathtaking and so fascinating that I was amazed to see the sunset right from the troposphere. You could see over here. And I was hoping to see the whole circular sun or the sunset what we see in the mountain ranges, but no, it was something different. And this was my first air travel. So that was so much breathtaking, and I was always peeping outside the window to get new exposures to study the clouds and all those things. I could see the cloud mountains and that stuff also. I got experience right from the morning departures, the morning weather, afternoon weather, the sunset, and at last the nightline of the Mumbai that everyone is fond to see Mumbai at night from the air, and finally touching down at Mumbai, ending my expedition journey. So that's all about my presentation. I'm so glad to be here and explain and present you about my Himalayan expedition. And of course, I hope that this will be helping you to cope up with plan your future expedition in your region, and as I mentioned, how to select the protocols. Okay, so that thing could be really helpful for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful and very detailed and elaborate presentation. This has been a great journey to the Leh Ladakh. And I remember when I went to Leh, first day we fly from Delhi to Jammu, and from Jammu to Leh. We came back because the flight could not land.
Yeah.
So we came back to Delhi. We have to book the flight again, straight flight to Leh, and then we have to come back again. And this was the third day we could land in Leh. So,
wow.
Yeah, that is, we had 2 free trips in the flight as we could not land in Leh. But now the facilities are more, and
Yes,
their
yes.
landing facilities are more. And I think this has been a great journey to the Leh, which is a cold desert. You can see not very many trees, no rains, the rainfall is very low. I don't remember, a couple of years back, there was flood. There was some, which I don't remember which year was that, and that was really very different environment, the climate and so and so. So we are very thankful to you for the wonderful presentation and joining us. And I'm sure the young students will enjoy and appreciate this beauty of the Himalayas, which is now more open. Leh and Ladakh is now more open.
Yes.
It's a union territory. One can travel more easily. Quite a lot of facilities are there now. And I think maybe we can consider, like we have a Lake Pokhara expedition, maybe sometimes in future, we can have something like expedition to the Leh Ladakh.
Yeah, sure. That will be much more exciting for
We
all
can-
of us.
Yeah, we can generate some activities in this part. Then we can identify some school, local school
Yes,
there,
yes.
like a globe school, and then we can see that how we can proceed further. Before we go, it's really long time. Can you take your shot out from the screen? I
Sure.
request Mr. Paliam to say a few words.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Paliam, like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. Excellent talk. I think you say a very interesting, very innovative experience on all the expedition and global activity. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I request Brian is here. I know it is more than midnight for him. Brian, like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Yashraj, for the wonderful presentation. Yeah, so I've just, it's great because what Yashraj has done with the expedition, I know not everyone can go physically on this expedition, but you know, the way Yashraj has laid it out with the story map and his description and his discussion, all of us can be there with him on this expedition and learn from him, you know, what's happening. Because where I am in the United States, which right now it is 2:46 a.m. in the United States where I am right now. But so I'll be going back to bed in about 10 minutes. But
Okay.
but the one thing that I really like about this is that, you know, what Yashraj has done is what he's done is can serve as a catalyst for others, you know, for students, for younger students in Yashraj to actually, you know, go out in their local environment and take observations and, you know, find a particular area, certain zones or, you know, areas, you know, in one part of their neighborhood or town where they can take these observations like Yashraj has done, you know, kind of on a smaller level than Yashraj did. But thank you, but thank you so much for that. And we also, Yashraj will be presenting this at our Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign at on October 19th. It would be at 4:00 p.m. UTC, and you can find that on our.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Brian. Yeah, Yogender is here from Nepal. Yogender.
Yes,
Is
Dr.
he there?
Desh.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think Yashraj has done wonderful job. He took the globe into the another level, I think. I really appreciate his presentation and it's a good learning for us. And now I realize that how the globe protocols could be so helpful during this research also. It's really interesting. I went through together with Yashraj in this presentation. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Yogender. I hope you remember Lake Okra expedition, which we plan next year. And sometimes we can have Leh expedition also. From Rod is here from Philippines. Rod, are you here?
I think he is not here. He is having
Okay. John, you want
meeting.
to say something? Anybody from Philippines? Any comments?
Hi, Dash. First, I would like to thank the teachers from Philippines. I have here Ma'am Marichu Kilia, Ma'am Glais Cantilado, and Ma'am Roda Asuncion. And the students. Okay, some left early because they still have classes. And thank you, Yash, for the great presentation. And I think this is very inspiring for students to join Globe and conduct science, do science with the use of Globe protocols. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Okay. Now may I request now Pom from Thailand? Pom?
Okay. Hi. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And
we
let.
can't see your face.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and let us see the beautiful picture from the top. Okay, thank you.
Well, you want to say anything about the regional meeting? Any feedback to us?
Oh, not much, yes.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
the next in November, we will send you a detail.
Okay. We have put
Okay.
up the regional meeting on the website. Have you seen that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. If you have any comments, please send. And who is from Vietnam? Vietnam, Chiu, you are here or somebody from Vietnam? Who is from Vietnam? Don't feel shy. Please make your comments. Philippines, Nepal, Taiwan, Vietnam, India, USA, Sri Lanka. Damayanti, you are here?
Yes, Desh.
Yeah.
So it's very impressive and very grateful, great presentation. Actually, so that remind us the Pokhara expedition also. Then, as you said, so that is so we wish that we had been there. Then. So it's very impressive and very nice. We'll see then. Okay, thank you for the nice presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Who is left? Which country is left to give documents? Vietnam is not here. The Chiu is always shy. Yeah. Okay. Well, now you see Lake Pokhara expedition is Brian is one activity which we with the Globe Nepal and regional coordination office we do, and which is very interesting. We study the Lake Pokhara and the vegetation around, and then the river vegetation. Quite a lot of activities are there, and the only problem we have more number of participants than we can accommodate. Always we have more participants from many countries to come, and hopefully in future we will consider to have expedition to Leh, and also we will try to identify one local school who can help us to take some observations and then some data and the globe protocols we can study. But that is not even, that is just in pipeline, not finalized. Maybe we can consider this, and in our next meeting or sometimes at the regional meeting we will discuss. But this has been a great day. You want to say something? The teacher from Nepal, you want to say something?
Okay, namaste everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and to all the participants over here. And yes, Raj, I'm very grateful to have your presentation. It was great. And one of our students was observing, and it was quite an amazing discussion we were having in between your presentation. So thank you for being such an inspirational person over here. And I'm very thankful to Globe, Brian, Desbandhu, especially Yogendra Chitrakar, who has really influenced us to motivated us, and all the participants. We are really very excited to move ahead. Due to COVID, we have lost so many days time over here, but yet we presented some of the presentation is still going on, or research is going on among the students. I feel proud to be the part of the Globe, and thank you very much once again, Yasraj. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, the teacher from Nepal, for your comments. And now, if you have anybody wants to make any comment, any suggestion, because I was getting a lot of messages that, oh yes, you are taking long time, but this was so wonderful. The landscape, the pictures, and the place is so beautiful. If you go yourself, it is much more beautiful than you can see. If you go along with the river Sindhu, you will see the best beautiful landscape in the world. It's really amazing landscape you have. And I think one day we all should go and see. And I'm sure we have a guide here who has been there, who can guide us. And thank you very much, Yashraj, for the wonderful presentation. And always you can count and contact regional coordination office for any of your activities, as I have been corresponding with you before your expedition, and then also supporting the way we can do, and also to Brian from NASA, supporting this young guy for all the activities, wonderful expedition they have. And I am very thankful to all of you, all the participants, all the teachers, and all the students. We had 55 in number, which is quite a good number from 8 countries to join this. And it is more than 2 hours, and then patience, everyone. And thanks, Brian. I hope you will get some sleep. I hope so. And then thank you very much. And then enjoy your day. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning, everyone. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.